This is excellent. So here we go with our Q&A with Monster Handler Matt. Quick review of the rules. Anyone who is in the Discord room here, if you do want to ask a question, I am going to type in the demo times room chat. Sorry, I'm not familiar with Discord terminology. I'm going to type questions in big capital letters. And I am going to add a hand emoji there, a raised hand. If you just want to click that raised hand, as people are already doing, that will be the indication that you want to ask a question. When you are called upon, you can either turn on your microphone and ask the question, or you can type the question into waiting room chat. I don't know if you have your eye on that, Monster Handler Matt.
I do.
Okay,
have
perfect. And I also have my eye on the Twitch chat in case people want to ask them there. It's not going to be as easy to pull from there, but it is doable. So we will try to filter some of those in throughout. I think that's just about it. I feel like I'm missing something, but I'm not sure what. You don't have to
Don't
remove
worry,
your
Eric. If
emoji
you are,
anymore.
it will become clear.
Okay. That's true. That's true. We will figure that out very quickly, won't we? All right. Well, then let's get this thing started. We have a question here from Xanderrock98. So we go ahead and ask your question. Oh, it did just occur to me what I was missing, and I think Xander's probably going to type, so this is relevant. Please only type your question after you've been called on. We're not going to be scrolling up and down in the chat to try to find a question that you pre-asked. So if you are asking a question in the chat, please only type it after we've called your name, and we will grab the very next question we see. And if we don't see a question for 30 seconds or typing, we'll move on. Sorry, Matt. Here you go. You've got your first question. Are you ready?
Yes, from Xanderrock98 asking, in the first version of My Singing Monsters, there was a monster called Pongping, which was an early version of Shelby that has no known design. Did it ever have a design? Yes, it did. I know there's at least one piece of concept art for it prior to it being sort of taken back to the old drawing board, so to speak. And perhaps that's the kind of thing that we might reveal in a future conversation with the monster handlers, perhaps at Extra Life, perhaps sooner. We'll see. But yes, I'm summoning the imagery of Pongping in my head, and its name is a good clue as to what sort of props or imagery on that particular monster were included in the concept art.
Very cool. The next question we've got will come from Harhar239, who I believe has a microphone.
So, in a few recent updates, we've gotten the Star Shop on like Ethereal Island and Sugarbush Island, also all the Magical Islands, with their own star rocks. And I was wondering if maybe with other islands, if we could get more decoration options, like Wublin and Celestial, they don't even have their own paths or anything. Or maybe even Gold Island, we could place decorations or structures on Gold Island. Just more customizability, or maybe even new paths or obstacles for the island skins for more value for that. I was wondering if there ever might be more decoration options, especially for those three, Wublin, Celestial, and Gold Island.
Great question, Har. I think Gold Island is probably going to remain mostly untouched. Just in terms from a technical standpoint, it's easiest to keep monsters as the only occupants of that island at this time. In terms of Celestial and Wublin Island, though, a pair of islands I like to affectionately refer to as the Zap Islands, those two I could certainly see in the future us expanding their decoration offerings and adding whether it be custom path decorations like you suggested, or maybe the Star Shop opens a new satellite locations on those Zap Islands as well with their own custom star rocks. Who's to say? I'd say that the sky's the limit as far as that's concerned. Great idea. I will be sure to pass it along to the team.
Very good. The next question we've got comes from Sky Ryan, who I believe will be typing, but if you have a microphone, feel free to speak up.
I see typing.
Excellent.
Monster Handler Matt, can you explain the development of Starhenge? Sky Ryan. Yes, I am happy to provide as much information as has been declassified by the monster handlers. It's sort of like UFO sightings. Some information's out there, but not all of it. So the development of Starhenge in Dawn of Fire was it came about as the solution to a challenge that we'd set for ourselves to have a monthly activity for players to participate in. And for that very reason, the working title of Starhenge back in the day was Zodiac Island. We were interested in having a once monthly object, be that a monster or some other thing that players could log in and participate in, and would sort of serve as the daily login bonus system in Dawn of Fire. And of course, you know, after much design deliberation, it was decided that probably the most exciting thing that could be collected on a per monthly basis were new monsters. And so the Zodiac monsters, which of course later got their official name of the Celestials, were born. And it was an interesting design process for Starhenge. Obviously, from an animation standpoint, it is the island in My Singing Monsters Dawn of Fire that has the most going on. It's got that sort of smaller pedestal rotating around the central platform. There are objects in orbit around it. There are gears turning. There's sand falling. There's the sort of celestials falling from the skies above to land on the platform that of your choosing. So it was definitely a huge technical challenge for us, and one that we set for ourselves, and we wanted to make it extra special. And then of course later we wanted to revisit the idea of monthly challenges in My Singing Monsters. Well, maybe less so monthly challenges, but the ability to bring Celestials to My Singing Monsters, and then of course Celestial Island was born, and then once all of the Celestials had been uncovered from the debris in their petrified forms, waiting to be revived on Celestial Island. Now, of course, we've got the monthly discounts that are happening, and of course, as April winds down, there's a new Celestial coming next Saturday, and of course that is Syncopite, the Celestial of crystal, with crystalline crop and the stars above the night sky of the monster world.
Ooh, I can't wait to read that fortune. Love those.
They are wonderful.
This next question comes from Deez Waffles. If you have a microphone, feel free to speak up.
Oh, I think they've typed it in the chat. So
Okay.
when making a new vocal monster, how do you assure it doesn't sound like any other and find the right voice? It's a great question. I think in terms of the musical composition side of Islands, you sort of have to not worry about what voices sound like existing ones or not when you're first composing the music. You have to try and devise a fun, engaging, interlocking piece of music that has sort of moving parts to it, that can be presented in their whole or in separate pieces. And so I think the creativity side of the musical composition in terms of vocals comes first, and then once that sort of firms up, then the decision is made, okay, well, you know, if this sounds too much like an existing monster, can we try and push it into a new direction? Or in some cases, make it a specific reference to a monster that has come before. Obviously, we're playing with that a little bit on Magical Sanctum with the introduction of Deja Jin and the fact that its sound, at least for us monster handlers, reminded us very closely of other sort of deep, rumbly voiced monsters like Entbrat, like Mammoth, and like Dermot that had come before. So we sort of make the decision at that time about whether or not we want it to be a totally novel sound, or if we did want it to sort of feel familiar and sort of feel part of the quintessential My Singing Monsters experience.
Very cool. Okay, this next question comes from Rebecca the Bowgart. Matt, I will give you a heads up. You may have to listen closely because her microphone can be a little bit quiet if she is going to speak through the microphone.
Okay.
Alrighty. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you like you're on the other side of the monster world, Rebecca, but I've cranked up my headphones so I can hopefully hear your question.
Alright. So, my question has something to do with the remaining firepods. We all know about the firepods, such as Instastars, Tiawa, Yelmut, and more. Since we are unable to see the remaining fire monsters that are in FSM, including the Dawn of Fire, I just want to know what happened to them.
That's a great question. Yes, obviously there are some monsters present in the era of Dawn of Fire that have not yet made their debut in My Singing Monsters. I can confirm from a story standpoint that all of the fire monsters that we have discovered that the monster handlers are aware of were actually totally safe and in sort of a state of anticipation to rejoin the rest of the monster world on Fire Haven when it was discovered. Obviously, from a composition and a creative standpoint, we didn't want to include all of those fire monsters on Fire Haven, and of course, we wanted to make room for the visiting delegation of natural monsters there, so that we could sort of carry the storyline forward. But for those monsters that you mentioned, like Yelmut and others like Tiawa and Flumox, I can confirm that from a storyline standpoint, they were all there on Fire Haven when it was rediscovered, and obviously a group of those fire monsters also made their way to the surface in the brand new Fire Oasis that was specifically constructed for fire monsters upon their triumphant return to the surface. At this point, we're not entirely sure what mechanism that we have in game that we can use to necessarily add those monsters to My Singing Monsters. It could be that we want them to remain as sort of special monsters that you only experience in Dawn of Fire, and that's what makes Dawn of Fire special. But again, never say never, that we're always open to creative ideas, and I know that there are a few sort of apple of our eye ideas about how at least in years to come, maybe they could make their return to the official game. But I can confirm that they haven't just disappeared. They are part of the restored presence of the fire elementals in the monster world.
Okay, well, speaking of quads, we've got a question from Twitch here from Carter MSM, and they ask, when will the quad for the Magical Sanctum be announced?
An excellent question. If another island, which worked sort of on a timed release schedule, can be consulted for reference, it could be that the quad element monster of Magical Sanctum may be among the last, if not the last monster that is released on Magical Sanctum. Of course, right now we are operating on an every 2-week schedule. A new monster gets dropped. Of course, on episode 7 of Fandemonium on Friday, we debuted the new monster arriving next Wednesday, April the 28th, and that's the marvelous Larvaluss, that we're very excited to be joining the cast of characters on Magical Sanctum. But I'm sure if you were to break open your calendar and take a look, you might be able to get a guess as to when that quad element monster may be arriving in game. That is, of course, subject to change. There's all sorts of things that could happen between then and now that might push that date, plus or minus a week or two. Unforeseen technical hurdles that we might need to jump, but Galvana willing, everything will be fine, and you can sort of anticipate that by opening your calendar and taking a looky-loo.
Very nice. What I'm looking forward to is this next question from Zippit Gene Funny Moment. If you'd like to type or ask your question through the mic.
Here it is. Will we ever see the natural/fire magical hybrid monsters return?
Thank you, Monster Handler Fran. Helpful as always. Will we ever see the natural fire magical hybrid monsters return? I am assuming, Zippagene Funny Moment, that you are referring to the roster of characters on each of the magical islands that make up the magical elemental groups on those given islands. So on an island like Psychic Island, monsters like Yuggler and Poppet and Bonkers and stuff like that. As of this time, we're not entirely sure how and when they may be making their return. Something that was sort of a design philosophy change that we did recently when we were working on the Fire and Magical Islands is that we wanted with each new island there to be new monsters for you to discover that would feel special and unique to those islands. The experience of collecting the natural islands is an interesting one because, of course, as you collect each new natural island, the number of new monsters that you're meeting for the very first time goes down to the point where you're just meeting Chorister for the first time on Earth Island. So the natural islands sort of operate with the idea that, okay, well, I'm familiar with these monsters, but I want to know what song that they sing. And in the case of the Fire and Magical Islands, we wanted to sort of up the ante there and say, okay, well, we want each of these islands to feel as new as possible and to have the maximum number of new monsters on that island as we can. So that was sort of the thinking of why each of those islands had a unique cast of characters. And at least for the time being, we are sort of thinking that that's where those monsters will live. That might be their sole place in the monster world. But again, there's always new things to discover in the monster world, and obviously all four corners are far from being fully fleshed out or discovered, and of course there's no sign of stopping that ongoing discovery effort. So you never know.
You never know. This next
You
question
never know.
comes from Matthew the Bowgart.
All right, here's my question. If Eric would also like to answer, cool, I guess, but this is to both Matt and Eric. So, of all the magical islands and fire islands, including Magical Sanctum, obviously, which one of them is your favorite?
A tough choice.
I think I have to. I have a very soft spot for Fire Oasis. I like the idea of the monsters coming together and cooperating to create an island made of blown glass for fire monsters to live on. I'm very fond of the Fire Oasis launch trailer that we have on our YouTube channel, and I also think the song really bops. If I had to choose a magical island, I would say Psychic might still be my favorite. And I know that's the first one, and then there's a lot of nostalgia associated with that one for me as well, with the idea of our player part contest from 2019, where we were able to successfully hoodwink the entire community into Team Earth and Team Air and Team Cold. And then, of course, former Monster Handler Sydney was Team Psychic all along. She did an ultimate stumping on all of us. So I think if I had to guess, it would be a tie between Fire Oasis and Psychic Island. What about you, Monster Handler Eric?
I think I mentioned earlier that I do really like Magical Sanctum. Something that I hadn't mentioned because, and I can't stress this enough. This is not nearly as big as it sounds, but as a personal thing, it feels big. Magical Sanctum is the only island I had even the slightest influence on for the song, and I actually forgot about this until right now. But I had the slightest input on adding to that island song, which is actually super cool for me. So I think that's gonna skyrocket. If I hadn't already thought it was one of my favorites, I think that's gonna skyrocket it up to the list from now on.
Yeah, the complete Magical Sanctum song, I think people are gonna lose their minds over when all monsters have been discovered. It's definitely up there for me too.
Cool. You know, you mentioned that you like Fire Oasis. Fire Oasis is actually my favorite island in MSM.
Yeah, it bops. I love it.
Yeah, it does.
I love the different sections. When Growl comes in and it sort of changes from being sort of a serious sounding song into like a really celebratory one. Yeah, very cool.
And you were very hands-on that video, Monster Handler Matt, and what a great video it was.
Yes, yes. Lots of positive vibes and memories from that video.
Okay, this next question comes from Wahoo, if you want to type or ask.
I'm trembling with anticipation. Maybe
have,
they've already typed
type
it, but
in?
if they could retype it,
yes,
they could
unfortunately,
retype it in the chat.
We can't be searching, so
that's part of our contractual obligations. No searching.
That's right.
Unless Monster Island Fran is searching right now.
I did locate it.
Okay.
Who did ask, where is Larvaluss's nose located?
Ooh.
Larvaluss's nose. Well, you'll have to read the bio on Wednesday, won't you, Wahoo? All good things come to those who wait.
We'll sneak in a couple more here just before the demo. This one comes from Lamp, who I believe has a microphone.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
I was wondering if like this is.
What, am I able to speak?
Matt.
Yo, hi!
Like you mentioned, like I don't know, communicating with the monsters, but can you communicate with the monsters on the Seeam between like the human world and the monster world? For example, the Sugar Fam.
That's a great question.
I just want to ask because I like the Sugar Fam.
Yes, the Sugar Fam. Yeah, the Sugar Fam definitely are awesome. The Seeam definitely has some characteristics to it, some qualities that make it sort of difficult to put in one category or another, because it's sort of existing. Because the Seeam itself exists between the human world and the monster world. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of input from both sides, and those islands that exist on the Seeam are sort of a child of two worlds, so to speak, like Spock, both Vulcan and human. But I will be sure to pass along your well wishes to the Sugar Fam. Definitely sort of My Singing Monsters' first family, so to speak.
Yeah.
All right. This next question comes from MPG.
I must. Okay.
Got some typing happening.
Oh, I see. Here it is. I've seen concept art for the bottom of the Plant Island Colossal. Its body not seen in game. What purpose did this concept art have for the game? Will it ever be used? Great question, MPG. Yeah, some very early concept art back when My Singing Monsters was just sort of in its very early weeks of development. There was a large bearded figure that later turned into the Plant Island Colossal that had its eyes open. It was gazing upward at the monster sitting on top of its head. I think at that point, I don't know if there was a specific gameplay use that we had for it. It was more along the lines of the imagery that one does when one is trying to get the feel and the vibe of something sort of locked down. Each of the artists sort of operate with their own sort of vision board or mood board of different ideas and references that they have when it comes time for them to create art. So I think in that particular instance, it was just one of those pieces of imagery that was going to help guide them during the creative process, but maybe it wasn't ever specifically planning on making its way into the game proper. In the same way that when you see concept art for just about anything, be it My Singing Monsters or otherwise, there's a lot of imagery there, angles that you don't necessarily see in the final version, sort of exploded view of the insides of things. So there's all sorts of that work that maybe isn't necessarily ever intended to be in the final product, but which really helps in the creative process when it comes time to visualize that thing when you're handling it creatively.
Okay, I was about to call on AimeePlaysMSM. I don't know if they're still here. If you are, because your hand lowered, so if you are still here and still want to ask the question, please do, and we'll give you just a few seconds. And if you are already gone, we will just move on. So just let me know, Fran or Matt, if you see.
I saw Amy. I saw Amy typing. I saw typing.
Okay.
There. Hello. Was the cold globe star shop decoration ever intended to be island specific with a plant globe, air globe, and so on for the other islands? In a word, nope. It was just only ever going to be the cold globe. And it was just something that we thought was a fun play on the fact that, of course, in the human world there's a snow globe, but we thought it was a funny opportunity to sort of hammer home the idea that the monsters are very adamant about that it's not snow, it's not ice, that's not the name of the element, that it's cold instead. So I think that was our opportunity to have some fun with that as well. A lot of those Star Shop decorations during anniversary month, I think it was anniversary month 2018 at this point, so they're a few years old now. A lot of those are sort of retouched up, recycled ideas of old Dawn of Fire decorations. I think lots of the members of the community knew that already, but it was really cool to sort of take that concept art, some of which was completed and in the Dawn of Fire art style, and sort of retrofit it to match the My Singing Monsters art style as well. Sort of like the same work that we did to take some of the Dawn of Fire monsters and give them a My Singing Monsters aesthetic when they arrived on islands like Firehaven and Fire Oasis.
Well, technically, that was supposed to be about the end of our Q&A, but if you're feeling up to it, Monster Handler Matt, I'm sure we can push it a bit closer to the demo time.
Yep, that works for me.
All right, if that's what the fans want, that's what the fans get. This next question comes from a very big fan, the MonsterExplorers.
Hello. Here's my question. What do the interdimensional highways look like, and how are they accessed by monsters when they teleport? I was thinking about the Magical Sanctum trailer.
Yes, the teleportal transcendence that are those interdimensional highways. Pom-Pom on Fandemonium actually had an opportunity to answer sort of this question in one way or another. The fact that teleportation is one of the oldest phenomena in the monster world, and that over time it's sort of done a topsy-turvy loop-de-loo, where it used to be that you needed the structure, but that when you used it, you grew from a young juvenile form into an adult form, and now it's the opposite. You don't need the structure, but when you teleport, you undergo a reversal, a regression back into the egg state. So certain monsters, like ethereals specifically, sort of have it ingrained in their very anatomy, in their DNA, that they're able to sort of access these interdimensional highways and slipstreams, whether that's the ghast's ability to sort of turn itself semi-intangible, whether that's the sonic buzzing of Humbug's wings, but there's all these different sort of parts of their anatomy that make them perfectly suited to basically accidentally falling into teleportal highways. Obviously, what those highways themselves look like, I think that the Pocket Dial Magical Sanctum trailer did a very good job of depicting them. They're sort of psychedelic. I think it's different for each monster. I think some of the imagery from the Pocket Dial video there was trying to basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Monster and Eric, because you did a lot of research about teleportal travel in the lead up to the Pocket Dial trailer. But it's sort of different for each monster, and that's why, you know, when we sort of saw the point of view of Theramine's traveling, we could see its sort of projected hands, and Flute Fly was sort of passing through large metaphysical versions of its mask, and Flores was surrounded by sort of a colorful version in miniature of itself. So I think that those highways sort of look different depending on which monster is teleporting, and of course how those monsters open those teleportal gates themselves sort of vary on a per monster level. From a lore standpoint, for those monsters that aren't ethereal, I think it sort of amounts to a certain amount of willpower. And I also think that way back when, during the dissolution of the continent into the natural islands, that all of the interdimensional teleportal energy that was previously sort of confined to the teleporter structure itself sort of went haywire and went all over the monster world. And that's why nowadays you don't need to have access to that structure, that it can just sort of happen from anywhere.
That Flores sequence that you mentioned is actually one of my favorite in the video, because it seems like they've discovered that they're actually able to sort of manipulate the journey, and that when they're starting, it's very much a plain background, but each time they tap another light on themselves, they're actually adding to the area around them. So that's another aspect that maybe the journey can be, you know, really, really personalized.
It's like lucid dreaming, where you can sort of direct, you know, the dream. You're in the director's chair.
That's right. On a similar note, and it's so small, probably no one would ever notice, but that's why we have these chats to fill you on these things. Near the end of Clacula's journey, I think little bow ties actually start flying by in the background as well. All right, this question came from Twitch.
A very ostentatious monster.
Yes, I did lightly touch on it, but I think it deserves a larger explanation. The question was from Box Boy, and they say, or Boxbow1, I shouldn't assume. Did the Team Earth rap at the end of My Sing Monsters Live secretly mean that Team Earth would have won if Psychic didn't exist? And if you don't mind, Monster Handler Matt, I can start explaining this right off the bat.
You can certainly take that one away, Monster Handler.
No, there was zero chance of Team Earth or Team Cold or Team Air becoming the element. It was always going to be Psychic, and it's something I think that us Monster Handlers were very proud of. We were very careful in all of our terminology and our different social posts. If you look very carefully, it was never stated that the quote-unquote winner would become the element. All of the wording was like, which element would you like on the island? Which element do you support? Who do you back up? And so really, at the end of the day, the contest was more like gathering opinions. So we didn't want anyone to feel like we really cheated them, and we didn't think they would, because Psychic was such a cool new element, and it sounds great. And yeah, so we're all pretty proud of that one, I think.
And of course, paved the way for recent updates like Magical Sanctum.
Exactly. Okay. We have a question here from StarburstClownfish, if you'd like to ask your question.
Oh, hello. Okay, so first of all, big fan of you guys, been watching you guys since I was a little kid. But this is a very important question, since I am a very big supporter of this monster. I need to ask, are Phangler infestations quite common in the monster world? And also, if you have met a Phangler, what are they like?
StarburstClownfish, I'm sure that Phangler, I don't know if I'm getting an echo on myself. I don't know if you can hear. Okay, it's better now. There we go. I don't think that Phanglers would definitely consider themselves to be responsible for any sort of infestations. I think that they probably just figure that they're gathering in numbers for a big party. And of course, the interesting thing about Phanglers is that they're sort of like they're child prodigies, right? Like from a very young age, they're very precocious. They're very sort of Hollywood, very movie star. They know that they're good at what they do, and they're not shy to show it off. That doesn't mean that they're conceited or that they're rude, but that they just know their entertainment worth. So I think that they probably don't think that it's an infestation at all. I think they probably think that they're providing a party's entertainment. And of course, when a Phangler grows up, it sort of mellows out. It becomes the perfect sort of monster to have at any sort of soiree or gathering. They're very nice to hang out with. Obviously, the monsters on Fandemonium would have a better answer than I would, of course, because as fellow monsters, their relationship is one that cannot begin to be matched by a mere human such as myself. But I can vouch for them and say that they're a pretty neat monster.
All right, this next question comes from my Singing Mammotts. If you'd like to type it in or step up to your mic.
All right, so my question actually refers to something that came back in around, I think it was September, when the Colosseum was released. Obviously, on MSM Live, you were looking into the Monsterglyphics that you found around the Colosseum. And we remember that it was kind of left on a cliffhanger, as the final pillar that we were looking for all the information was missing. Do you ever plan to return to this Lord Colosseum and explore it fully, or is this just something that's going to be left in mystery?
A great question, my Singing Mammotts. All of the information that we were able to glean from the Monsterglyphics in the conservatory has been recorded and shared with the community. Unfortunately, the one pillar that you're referring to, the column that depicted the Monsterglyphic of Pom and that sort of described the specific events around the breaking apart of the continent into the natural islands, that information still sort of remains largely a mystery. We do have new information that was recovered from those Monsterglyphics, namely, how the Colosseum came to be, that it was the first recorded instance of a colossal spirit imbuing its life force into a landmass in order to sort of give it form and give it purpose, and that we know that the other colossal that was sort of looking ahead to possible disturbances to the harmony of the Dawn of Fire era later contributed its life force to the creation of Tribal Island. We sort of like the parallels that can be drawn between those two islands and the fact that one of them is very cooperative. Obviously, that's Tribal Island, where you're all working together towards a common goal, and then the sort of the opposite side of that is the Colosseum, where you sort of are able to participate in friendly competition, and that you're able to pit yourself against other players. And we like to think of those two islands as sort of complementing each other and sort of representing the duality of music as well. That you can be a solo artist or even just like play a solo on top of a piece of music and sort of take the spotlight, or it can be a large orchestral ensemble that all works together in concert to make something much bigger than the sum of its parts. So those two colossals in story sort of had different ideas, different notions about how music could be used as a tool to ensure the harmony of the monster world. But at this time, the Monsterglyphics that have been recovered are all that exist in the historical record, I'm afraid to say. Not to say that someone couldn't have made a reproduction of them somewhere, but if that some place exists, it's not currently on the Colosseum.
All right, I think we've got time to sneak one last question in here, and we will go to Quazuk if you want to type in or step up to your mic.
I see the question. Hey, in a recent Fandemonium episode, I think it was Pongping who said Volume 2 of the MSM soundtrack will be released sometime after Magical Sanctum completes. Does this mean Magical Sanctum is the last island for the foreseeable future, or will islands continue to release on the current schedule of 1 or 2 a year? Quazuk got some inside baseball, my friend. Of course, at this time, we can't confirm or deny any sort of production plan for upcoming islands or upcoming content, but I would say that if the past is any indication, that Volume 2 does not represent the end of music for My Singing Monsters, that there will always be something new that we're working on the horizon. There is lots that we would like to see included in Volume 2 of the My Singing Monsters official soundtrack. Obviously, there are several tracks that are missing from Volume 1, and also potentially some remixes or some new versions of familiar island songs that we'd like maybe to include on there. So we hope that later this year, in Year of the Monster, that we'll be able to provide more details about that. And of course, as soon as we know, you will know, or at least not as soon, very soon after.
Awesome. Okay. Really briefly, we will be back with a playthrough, which I believe, Matt, you are going to be competing in.
Oh, yes, competing is one word for it. I'm going to be doing my best. I'm going to be doing my best to try and see how it goes. Now, as I mentioned before, there might be a whole lot of stumpage happening here. As I mentioned yesterday, I did participate in sort of the development of My Singing Monsters, the board game, and I have reviewed the very helpful explanatory materials that exist for My Singing Monsters, the board game, but I might be the one asking the majority of questions. And maybe that's where the community could come in and help.
Very much so. And we'll of
see.
course, we'll have Fran around, if not also Michael, and I'll be there. I'm getting a pretty good grasp of this whole thing by watching. So stick around. We will be leaving the Q&A room and heading into the demo room shortly. If you do want to play, make sure to let us know so that we can get as many community members in. You just need a copy of Tabletop Simulator, and then we can get you that information to hop on in and play with Monster Handler Matt. So with that, we will be back very shortly with the playthrough. Thanks for a great Q&A, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Happy monstering!
Element tokens, diamond tokens, treats, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, in the base version, the player tokens are tokens similar to these, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then in the deluxe version, that's where those figures.
That's a big secret.
Oh, is it? Oops. Oh, well.
Well.
Cap that along. I mean, it would be announced anyways with with the details of the Kickstarter.
With the Kickstarter, yeah. So it's encouraged to head over to our Kickstarter, which we do have that link in the links list.